And good afternoon, everybody! I'm Rocky DePala, joined by Gregor, Hope Murray, and today we're going to talk some football. Woo! Now, Gregor, as we know, there's some teams that have Super Bowl aspirations, but they didn't. Some of them didn't show it in Week 1, and one of them being the Colts.
Yeah, no, definitely. The Colts definitely did not show up to the plate on Sunday, this 1 o'clock against the Bills. I believe they went 3 quarters without scoring a single touchdown, and they finally started scoring points in garbage time. The Bills completely shut out Andrew Luck, to be honest, and it was a very disappointing game from their standpoint, because not only did they not score many points, they also lost T.Y. Hilton for what looks like 2 to 4 games.
Indeed, and also what I witnessed from the Colts is that they didn't look proficient or efficient on offense. So it seemed like they had the same problems that they had last year, or the year before. They're having it this year, and and they let Rex Ryan, out of all people, just go out there and dominate them defensively.
Yeah, no, they looked just absolutely horrible in offense, not to mention that defense, yet again, looks like the same issues as last year, where they just couldn't stop the run, and they just let in all these points to the point where the Bills just had a lead that they could not come back against.
I know. I mean, Tyrod Taylor had over 100 yards rushing, and it's like you could have drove a bulldozer through that hole.
I could have ran for 100 yards rushing against that defense.
Yeah, even a guy like me. But they have their issues, though.
Oh, no, most certainly. Not as much, though, as the Seahawks seems to have theirs, with them losing their first game against their divisional rival, the Rams.
Now, we all know, as I told you, the Rams, I felt like they were going to be a playoff team, though, but they made just an outstanding stand. They just made it a big statement in this Week 1 game, though. But I think this says more about the Seahawks than the Rams, if you ask me.
Oh, no, definitely. The Seahawks, for whatever reason, could not get it done offensively. The defense is yet again the part of the team that is basically getting them to survive through games. The offense did not produce nearly enough points for what it should have, and in the end was the reason why they lost that game. They went out this offseason and got Jimmy Graham to make that offense even more scarier, because you already have Marshawn Lynch, and Jimmy Graham was meant to be their new passing threat, and they did nothing with it. Russell Wilson only threw an interception that game. I don't believe he threw a touchdown at all.
And also, there's one thing that stood out to me in that game,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one number, and that number is 1. You want to know what the number 1 stands for?
What on earth does that number 1 stand for?
1 meaning that the Seahawks couldn't get 1 yard, one lousy stinking yard. They couldn't get 1 yard last year in the Super Bowl, and they couldn't get 1 yard in Sunday's game when they needed it on 4th down.
And that was with one of the best running backs in the NFL, and they could not get that 1 yard when they needed it most. That 1 yard was going to be them winning that game.
Well, they were losing, though. They had to get that 1 yard just to have a chance to be in the game.
That's very true. That 1 yard would have only given them a chance at a field goal, not necessarily the game-winning score, though.
Give them a chance just to be within the game, though. But I think Pete Carroll's haunted by the Super Bowl decision, if you ask me.
I don't think he's necessarily the one who's haunted. If anything, I think Russell Wilson seems to have lost some of his confidence that he had, at least last year, where he knew that he could make the right decisions when it mattered, and he doesn't seem ready to he hasn't moved on from what happened in that Super Bowl. And I think that's going to be perfectly fine for right now. It's only game 1. But he's got to make sure that he gets over it by the time midseason comes around.
Plus, I think the absence of Cam Chancellor is hurting the Seahawks as well, because Cam Chancellor, as we know, is holding out, wants a contract wants a contract,
Yeah, no.
Wants the money.
Yeah, no, they gotta pay that man. He's a big part of that defense, and there's a lot of teams knocking on that door trying to get him.
Plus, the Seahawks could be easily facing 0-2 because they go up to Lambeau Field in Green Bay to play the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers and company wants to avenge last year's NFC title game loss.
Almost definitely, and the Seahawks are nowhere near the same threat that they are at home on the road.
Now, as for the disappointments, let's talk about the surprises. Atlanta, they did well defensively. They shut down a high-powered Eagles offense, though. What do you think about Atlanta?
I liked a lot of what Atlanta put out in the first half of that game. They slowed down that Eagles offense. They made it look bad, to be honest, at the very start of that game. And their offense, with Julio Jones going, they had a hell of a first half. And I think the only thing Atlanta needs to make sure that they don't make a common rule this season is don't let off the gas. They let off the gas in the second half and let the Eagles back into that game.
Plus, this Falcon defense, from what I witnessed, they're forcing turnovers, they're getting stops. That's something you didn't see in prior years under Mike Smith. Now with Dan Quinn, he brings that defensive mentality, that defensive philosophy that he had in Seattle.
No, that's exactly what the Falcons needed. During this offseason, I wanted to see them go out and get a defensive head coach so that they could balance their team. A defensive head coach going into that organization, they can go and change that defense to the way that they need to in order to be a power defense because the offense is all set. You've got everything you need there with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Roddy White. That's all you need. You let them do their thing and they'll get points. You don't need to worry.
Now, another team that stood out to me that also played on Monday night was the 49ers. Now, people picked the 49ers to be one of the dreadful teams in the NFL, though. But they didn't show that way on Monday night against the Vikings.
Yeah, no, I was definitely one of those people who thought the 49ers were not going to be a powerhouse team like they were in the past few years, mostly because of what happened in that organization during the offseason. During the offseason, they seemed to be throwing everyone out of that door, and everyone wanted out of the clubhouse. And it was crazy to think that they were going to be doing well this season, and I, in fact, picked the Vikings to beat them in this game, and they proved me wrong. Their defense stood strong against that Viking offense.
Also, the emergence of Carlos Hyde as a running back.
Oh yeah, no, that man caused a lot of trouble for the Vikings on Monday Night Football there, and it was crazy to watch him run. He had some really good cuts, and if anyone's a fantasy football watcher, definitely, if you don't have him already or no one has him, go get him.
I have him on my fantasy team in ESPN.
Oh yeah, no, that he scored. How many points did he score?
He had to score at least maybe 17.
Yeah, no, he scored a ton of points.
He had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he scored a ton of points with someone that was for majority unknown.
But I think as fans, though, we kind of overreact with Week 1, though, and we have to understand, there's 15 games left to play. But let's see if the Seahawks and Colts can turn it around, and let's see if the 49ers and Falcons can keep it going. For this week's report, I'm Rocky DePaula.
I'm Gregor Murray.
Have a great day, Gales.